Executive Director of the Brain Injury Association of South Carolina. I would like to welcome everyone to South Carolina Brain Injury Awareness Day here at our state capitol. I would especially like to thank members of the General Assembly, members of the press, and Brain Injury Association of South Carolina members and supporters for attending our event. Across our nation, the month of March is Brain Injury Awareness Month. The Brain Injury Association of South Carolina is joining our fellow affiliates across the nation and the Brain Injury Association of America in creating more awareness of brain injury. Currently, there are over 60,000 South Carolinians living with a brain injury related to living with a disability as related to a brain traumatic brain injury. The number one cause of death in South Carolina is traumatic brain injury for persons 1 to 44 years old. Brain injury is truly a public health issue nationwide. Our theme this year for Brain Injury Awareness Month is A Concussion is a Brain Injury. It's not just a bump on the head or a ding, but specifically a concussion is a type of brain injury that changes the way the brain normally works. Recognition of concussions when they first occur can help aid recovery and prevent further injury or even death. Therefore, we need to protect our youth athletes and student athletes by following important policies and return to play guidelines in our schools. I'd like to give you a few statistics about concussions. An estimated 3.8 million sports and recreation-related concussions occur in the United States each year. Most concussions occur without loss of consciousness. Children and teens are more likely to get a concussion and take longer to recover than adults. More than 40% of high school athletes return to participate in school athletics before they have fully recovered from a concussion, increasing their chance of more serious brain injury. College and high school football players who have had at least one concussion are at increased risk for another concussion. For males, of course, the leading cause of high school sports concussion is football, and for females is soccer. Last year, two of our honorable legislators, Senator Mike Fair and Representative Peter McCoy, introduced bills that require policies to be put in place for proper identification of concussions and management in school athletics. The Brain Injury Association of South Carolina commends these legislators on their efforts to have a concussion law in South Carolina that protects our student athletes. Brain Injury Association of South Carolina would like to encourage more movement on these bills. Today we have these two legislators present to speak to you, as well as two student athletes who have personal experiences involving a concussion and a subdural hematoma. We also have medical and professional experts who will give their perspective on concussion policies. Lastly, we have a representative, lastly but not least, we have a representative from the National Football League to give an update on the NFL efforts in concussion management. First, I would like to introduce Senator Michael Fair from District 6 in Greenville County. Senator Fair is a graduate of University of South Carolina, as well as a former football player for USC. Senator Fair introduced Senate Bill 668. Senator Fair, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule today.
I'm pleased to be here with all of you today. I'm sorry that we're here because someone has suffered an injury to their brain or had some illness associated with that resulted in some sort of brain disorder. And I wanted to tell you that as an athlete, I played, I don't know how many years of football, but I had a couple of concussions in high school. I had one concussion. You Clemson fans would like to know, I suppose, since I recovered fully, I think, that it was against Clemson. They were right unkind to me as a quarterback at USC. And then I tried playing a little professional football and had a concussion later on. It's a very serious problem. There's no way as an athlete who had a momentary disruption in my schedule is about what it amounted to identify with some of you who have had traumatic brain injury. And I know that, and I can tell you this, that the entire General Assembly is interested in trying to assist, whether it's with on the front end, helping our schools of engineering as they try to develop headgear, or it's with our physicians as they're doing research, trying to prevent blockages that create aneurysms or weaknesses in the vein that create aneurysm, blockages that create other brain trauma. Our General Assembly is committed, and it's mostly because of an individual that we know or someone in our family. Luke Gribick is a friend of mine, and Luke is right there. Luke and I went to the same church for a number of years, and he had the strangest thing to happen to him that defies explanation, but the young man has not quit to this day. He's still doing what he needs to do to spread the story that more needs to be done to help men and women, boys and girls who've had traumatic brain injury. Our heart goes out to you, and more than that, we want to help wherever we are, whatever our station in life is. And I wanted to tell you that coming from the Senate and coming from the Children's Committee, this is one of the bills that we have embraced in the Children's Committee, and that would be the measure to improve safety as it relates to our young athletes. There's so much that we gain from athletics that we need to conquer this particular problem insofar as it's possible to conquer. And much of it has to do with coaching, by the way, coaching how to keep your head out of the way. And I'll let the NFL man talk to us about that. He looked away. He must not be a coach. But again, I'm glad to be here, and I look forward to working with the leadership of your organization in the months and years ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I would like to introduce Representative Peter McCoy from District 116 in Charleston County. Representative McCoy is an attorney, and he was also a college athlete and totally understands the risks athletes take when they take the field. Representative McCoy, thank you for being here. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Joyce. It's an honor to be here today to speak to everybody, because today is a special day in South Carolina. Today is a day we start to raise awareness that brain injuries and concussions are very serious, and they start at a young age. Now, I was always a little too small to play football, but I love football and I love contact sports. But I played tennis in college. You don't suffer too many brain injuries or concussions in tennis, but it's very important that we raise this issue now. As maybe many of you have read, I've sponsored a bill that's on the House side to not only raise the awareness, but also to protect our student athletes, protect our high school and middle school athletes. And this bill comes at no extra cost to the taxpayers. What it does is raise awareness, and that's what we need to do. We need to spread the word and raise awareness, and we need to get this bill passed, because as our professional athletes that are here today can tell you, brain injuries that start, concussions that happen at a young age are the ones that are the most deadly, and they're the ones that lead to serious injuries later in life. I thank everybody for being here. It's an honor to be here. Joyce, thank you for having me, and it's good to be a part of this program.
Okay, thank you so much. Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Craig Burnworth. Dr. Burnworth is a primary care sports medicine physician with Moore Orthopedic Clinic here in Columbia. He is the medical director of the Moore Sports Concussion Center, where he works with Dr. David Scott. He has treated concussions here in the Midlands for 5 years and previously treated concussions while serving in the U.S. Air Force in combat settings. Please welcome Dr. Burnworth. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Joyce. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here for this very important day. I've been asked to speak about the medical aspects of concussion. First, you need to know they're common in South Carolina. They're the #1 cause of death in 1 to 44-year-olds in South Carolina. They also represent 9% of injuries in high school athletes. Historically, they've been downplayed in sports. Terms like bell ringer and dinged have previously been used. And currently, coaches on the sidelines are still working to adapt to the new recommendations regarding concussions and return to play. Concussions is a tough thing to treat. They vary both in how they present and also how long it takes for individuals to recover. During the recovery period, there is an increased risk and vulnerability to more severe brain injury. One such type of injury is called second impact syndrome. This describes a second trauma that occurs while the individual is still recovering from the first injury, and this can cause either long-term or permanent disability and even death. Over the last few years, there's been an explosion in the field of medicine surrounding brain injury and the management of sports concussion. We've heard through documentaries on CNN and ESPN, as well as other media outlets, of some horrific outcomes of brain injury, both in the short and long term. Also highlighted were prevention programs being developed to help change the culture of contact sports. Rule changes in the NFL, as well as other professional sports, and also in college, are helping pave the way for a greater awareness of concussions and the risk of concussions in the long term. The international medical community has developed consensus concussion guidelines to help prevent further damage from subsequent concussions and provide a safer return to play for our athletes. Unfortunately, most physicians are unaware of these guidelines, even in the medical community. The risks to our youth are compounded by the fact that in South Carolina, most of our middle schools and 50% of our high schools do not have certified athletic trainers present in the schools. They serve on the field as our first line of defense for our children. The South Carolina High School League required physician concussion clearance for the first time this year for high school sports. But that doesn't cover, yes, definitely. But that doesn't cover our middle schools, it doesn't cover our private schools, it doesn't cover our club sports, so we have a ways to go in South Carolina. Currently, the legislation in the State House and Senate hopes to create some standardization in the treatment of brain injuries. As a sports medicine provider, I enthusiastically support this type of legislation and also advocate the continued education of athletes, coaches, referees, and physicians in order to help the next generation of athletes. It is my hope that no one sees an athlete struggling in the classroom again and labels him as a dumb jock and when they're suffering from a brain injury. Please support these bills, call your representatives, let's try to get moving forward with this. We need to join the other 35 states in the United States that have laws on the books similar to this. Thank you so much for your time. And now it's my privilege to introduce one of those athletes that you may have seen on the news last night. She upstaged me. This is Miss Anna Penland. She's a middle school athlete at Hammond, and she's going to speak a little bit about her personal experience. Please welcome her.
Good afternoon. My name is Anna Penland, and I'm a 7th grader at Hammond School here in Columbia. I'd like to thank Ms. Joyce Davis of the Brain Injury Association of South Carolina and Dr. Craig Burnworth, my awesome concussion doctor of Moore Clinic, for having me here today. Who knew brains were so important and so complicated? On January 3rd of this year, I was playing in a middle school basketball game. I was elbowed to the ground by an opponent, and I got a very severe concussion when I hit my head on the floor. At first, no one knew how bad I was hurt. I got up, told them I was okay, and finished the final minutes of the basketball game. I was conscious, and my concussion symptoms did not show up until after the game when I was in the locker room. I was really glad our school trainer was there to help because I was dizzy, confused, and nauseated with the worst headache of my life. I only knew all this because what my parents have told me. I remember nothing really of the accident, as well very few details of the 3 weeks or so following it. I was evaluated by the pediatrician, and she sent us to the concussion clinic to be tested by Dr. Burnworth and his nice assistant, Sean. They told us that I only scored in the less than 1 percentile, and that meant it was really bad. For several weeks, I had to let my brain rest, so I sat in the dark, not allowed to text, play computer games, or watch much TV. This did not make my life very fun, considering I'm a 13-year-old girl. I was not cleared to return to basketball for the rest of the season, which made me really sad, but my team signed a basketball as a gift for me. They dedicated the season to me and won the region championship, so that was very exciting. Since that time, the headaches have not ever really gone away. I have had many doctor visits, I've had to take lots of medicine, and I had an MRI, but it showed no brain bleed, so that was a very good thing. I couldn't go to school for 5 whole weeks. Friends did bring us great meals and said lots of prayers, which helped a lot. My family has been very supportive too, especially my mom. So here we are 78 days later, and I'm up to about the 70th percentile on the impact testing at the concussion clinic, which is a big improvement from where we started. I'm only able to go to school for 2 hours a day because I get really tired with a headache, and my short-term memory is still out of whack. I have lost a lot of things, and with no short-term memory, it makes it really hard to study for certain tests. If anything good can come out of all of this, it will be these final thoughts. I know that I'm very lucky because I know that my injury could have been a whole lot worse, and that I will make a full recovery eventually. I want everyone, coaches, parents, players, and students, to take concussions seriously and realize sometimes they're worse than you think, even if you don't get knocked out. Who knew all this could happen in a middle school girls' basketball game? It is really important that players don't come back into the game too soon because they need time to heal. That is the most important thing of all. I now know that I am living proof that a concussion is truly a brain injury. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. That was wonderful. It's an amazing experience. Now I'd like to introduce Brennan Barber. He's a senior at Mid Carolina High School. He's a football player, and now he's a tennis player as well. He's going to tell you about his life-threatening experience in a scrimmage back in August of 2011. Thank you, Brennan, for being here.
Thank you. Good afternoon. As she said, I'm Brennan Barber. I'm a senior at Mid Carolina High School, where I'm a member of the varsity football team. I'm both proud and honored to be a part of something that is so important to me and hit so close to home. On August 5th, I stepped on the football field only to be carried off later that night. I received a helmet-to-helmet hit while playing defensive end. I then noticed my arms were going numb. I was losing my coordination, so I walked off the field. Within a few minutes, I lost consciousness. Thankfully, we had an athletic trainer present that had the proper training and knew exactly what to do at that point in time. I was rushed to Palmetto Health Richland, where I was diagnosed with a life-threatening subdural hematoma. I needed emergency surgery in order to stop the bleeding on my brain. Although my injury is much more severe than an average concussion, they are both still head injuries. Many people don't realize that concussions are in fact brain injuries and not simply just a headache. I was fortunate that I had a certified athletic trainer at my school. Having an athletic trainer is important for the safety of all athletes. However, not everyone can be as lucky as I was, since so many school districts still do not employ athletic trainers. This is one of the reasons why passing the bill is so important. Okay. This is one of the reasons why passing the bill is so important. The bill will ensure the safety and the protection of all athletes, as well as their coaches. We will all have to view each athlete as people, students, and someone's child, and do all that we can to protect them from what starts off as a concussion to progressively being worse and possibly as bad as what happened to me. And as far as that goes, you don't need to leave things like that untreated. In case you're wondering how I'm doing now, I'm blessed that today I'm doing well. Surviving a life-threatening injury really changes your perspective on life. I had to come to terms with the fact that I would never play football again or any other contact sports. I missed a lot of school and didn't get to begin school full-time until October. I went through months of therapy, and then my athletic trainer, Caleb Lott, continued my rehab at school several days a week. I had taken courses all through high school to prepare me for a career in engineering, but after this happened, my plans of the future have also changed. I will now be attending college in the fall to become an athletic trainer also. As someone who has overcome a traumatic brain injury, I want to thank you for your support of this bill, and thank you for allowing me to speak to you this afternoon.
My name is Kenneth Edmonds, and I'm the Director of Government Relations and Public Policy for the National Football League. And I want to thank Joyce Davis and the Brain Injury Association of South Carolina for organizing today's event. I'm pleased to be here and join the team of advocates and stakeholders. The National Football League strongly supports youth sports concussion legislation. It will help to prevent preventable brain injuries and make sports safer for youth athletes throughout the state. The NFL is playing a leading role in addressing the issue of concussions. We put player safety first and want to help to do the same for athletes in all sports at all levels, especially among young people. The league has strict return to play guidelines that apply to some of the best athletes in the world. And we believe a similar approach is necessary when dealing with some of the youngest. As you've heard, concussions can occur in athletes of any age and in any sport. And children and teens whose brains are still developing are more likely to get a concussion and take longer to recover than adults. That's why it's critical to recognize and respond to concussions when they first occur among this vulnerable population. Doing so helps to aid recovery and to prevent prolonged concussion symptoms, chronic impairment, and even death. And that's what these bills that were introduced in the legislature do. Youth sports concussion legislation will ensure that an athlete who may have sustained a brain injury abides by the warning, when in doubt, sit it out. It will help to protect youth athletes in all sports from the risks of repeat concussions and catastrophic brain injury. And it will help to keep young people safe at play and out of harm's way. Since 2009, similar youth sports concussion legislation has been passed in 31 states as well as the District of Columbia. These states include Alabama, Louisiana, North Carolina, and Virginia. I urge lawmakers in this state to pass youth sports concussion legislation. When that happens, it'll represent a big victory for youth athletes throughout the state.
Thank you, Kenneth. Now, we've had all of our speakers, and I really want to No, we actually have one more. I'm sorry. I got kind of out of order there. We have Dr. George Wham from Pillion High School. He's our head athletic trainer, or he's the head athletic trainer at Pillion High School. He's also with the South Carolina Athletic Trainers Association. And George has served as a consultant with us, with the Brain Injury Association, in a grant that we've received through the South Carolina Developmental Disabilities Council to educate coaches on concussion and identification and management. Dr. Wham?
Thank you. What's more important than student achievement in South Carolina schools? Well, I can tell you, student health and safety while they are in our care. Good afternoon, my name is George Wham, and today I'm speaking on behalf of the South Carolina Athletic Trainers Association. I also serve as the head athletic trainer at Pillion High School, and for the last couple of years I have been working closely with Joyce and the Brain Injury Association as they have attempted to raise awareness, educate coaches, and assist schools in better identifying and managing concussions. Our understanding of concussion has changed a great deal lately, and as a result, the standard of care regarding concussion has changed a lot in recent years. What was best practice just a few years ago is no longer acceptable with what we now know in 2012. For that reason, the South Carolina Athletic Trainers Association endorses the proposed concussion legislation and has been working with a coalition of groups like the Brain Injury Association and Safe Kids to make recommendations to our State House decision makers regarding what this legislation aimed at better identifying and managing concussions in our high school and middle school athletics programs should look like. Last year, the South Carolina High School League adopted requirements for member schools regarding concussion, and those requirements are good first steps. These requirements include an annual concussion education for coaches, no same-day return to play after a concussion, and physician clearance after a concussion. However, we believe that key components of appropriately managing a concussion are missing in these requirements. The proposed legislation provides a more comprehensive approach that mirrors that of the NCAA and other states, and even more importantly is rooted in the standard of care as established by the Zurich International Consensus Statement. Elements such as a creation of a written concussion management plan for each school, use of an objective concussion assessment tool such as the SCAT-2, educating parents regarding their child's concussion, requiring a daily symptom score check for concussed athletes, addressing academic issues related to concussion, and the requirements of a graduated return to play over several days are vitally important in managing a concussion appropriately in 2012. I call on legislators to join 31, maybe I heard this morning, 35 other states pass the concussion bill into law and provide our athletes with the care they deserve. Furthermore, I call on lawmakers to prayerfully consider other health and safety issues related to high school sports. It is my belief that a state commission under DHEC comprised of leaders in sports medicine in our state should be created that is dedicated to health and safety issues in secondary school athletics. This regulatory body would make rules related to issues in secondary school athletics for all athletic programs in South Carolina schools. Concussion, heat illness, environmental acclimatization, cardiac events, MRSA, exertional sickling, catastrophic cervical injuries are only a few of the issues that schools should be equipped to handle appropriately, not to mention the non-catastrophic but serious injuries that commonly occur in high school sports. In our little high school, our little 2A high school last year, we had 14 surgery requiring injuries. We had 527 total injuries, and we had 19 concussions. Who's managing these things in our state? I think that's a question parents need to be asking. This issue is much bigger than most folks understand, and only when the outcomes are catastrophic do they reach the media and general public. Secondary school athletes are students in our care taking part in risky activities. The least we can do is provide appropriate care. In some parts of our state, this is done very well. In other parts, it is very much lacking. The corridor of shame does not just apply to academics. Let's do the right thing. Let's take care of our kids. It starts with this concussion legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wham. Now we're at the end of our press conference. Our awareness day continues, though. We'll be going to the Senate and hopefully getting recognized as we did this morning in the House. I would like to say thank you to all our speakers today. It's quite evident that we need a law in South Carolina to ensure that we have appropriate concussion guidelines to identify concussions and manage them so our student athletes stay healthy and protected. Thank you all for attending our Awareness Day out in the audience, as well as I would like to thank some organizations that assisted us in this event. South Carolina Safe Kids and Heidi and David with South Carolina Children's Trust. Thank you. Also, South Carolina Independent Living Council and Disability Action Center right here in Columbia. Thank you. South Carolina Injury Free Alliance. South Carolina Athletic Trainers Association, in which they are having a legislative luncheon to discuss guidelines with legislators and lawmakers if you're interested in meeting with them. Also wanted to thank South Carolina Brain Injury Leadership Council. And the National Football League. And last but not least, I want to thank our support groups across the state. A lot of them are sitting around here. We got some folks from Greenville, from Aiken, I believe Hartsville, just Charleston, just awesome. Yeah, our support groups are the places where after people have experienced brain injuries or like severe brain injuries, they go and meet once a month and talk with their peers and provide support to each other. And they enjoy bringing awareness about brain injury, and they're here today to help support us. So thanks so much to our support groups and our support group leaders. Thank you so much. Have a great day and be safe going home.